This video is sponsored by Tabletop Ready Miniatures. Get your favorite minis at a discounted price by visiting tabletopreadyminiatures.com. Link in the description below. Hey Wargamers, today we're going to continue our 2019 update series by taking a look at Vespid. Now, Vespid are supposed to be fast, punchy, anti-infantry units, and a lot of people have tried to make them work or hoped that they would work, and it just hasn't worked out. It doesn't come together. And there's two main reasons for that. One is that they lack durability. They're only one wound with a 4-up save, pretty easy to kill. And the second is points efficiency. They just don't have the output to justify their inclusion in the army when we have such point efficient units like Fire Warriors in the roster. So they suffer on those two fronts, and like we did with Kroot, I think I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about how I would like this unit to be improved in the future, kind of a wish listy episode, rather than go over everything that I've already talked about in my initial review of them, because I think a lot of that stuff is still accurate. So today we're going to talk about how I would change Vespid, how I'd like to see them change in a few different ways. So first, let's talk about durability. How can we resolve this? Well, the easy answer is to just do a flat stat increase, right? We can add 1 to their toughness, give them another wound, improve their save to 3-up or something. Any of those would help in this regard, but I think they would be a little bit heavy-handed perhaps, not necessarily quite as fluffy, and, really represent a missed opportunity for doing some fun things that fit with the theme of Vespid. They're supposed to be bugs, they're supposed to be kind of, skitterish, they're supposed to be fast and darty, and in the past, they had a rule that allowed them to benefit more strongly from cover saves if they were in ruins. And I think that's an opportunity to bring something like that back rather than a flat stats increase. Lean into kind of that skittering nature of Vespid and manifest that in the rules. So either having them benefit from, 2 points of cover, right? So instead of getting a 3-up save when they're in cover, they get a 2-up save when they're in cover, or actually giving them -1 to hit when they're in cover. I think I like, obviously, the -1 to hit a little bit better. It's a stronger rule for several reasons. But in general, I think that also fits with kind of the theme of Vespid a little bit better too. So I think it's thematic, and it would make them play a little bit more cagey, right? It would really emphasize being in cover for Vespid, and that would mean that they would have to use their height and mobility, 14 inches isn't bad, to go from terrain feature to terrain feature and really have to play cagey and make a calculated assessment of when they're going to jump out and shoot, rather than a flat stats increase, which would not necessarily require them to have that type of strategy in their movement or deployment. Having this type of interaction facilitates more dynamic gameplay with them. And I think that's an important part when we're looking at tweaking the power level on things and making them notably stronger than they already are. Then there's also the issue of points efficiency. Now, there's 2 ways that we can address points efficiency. One is to just make them cheaper to the point that they warrant their inclusion in the army just based on those numbers alone. But they're already at a pretty good price point for what you would expect them to do. And in fact, we probably would even need to tweak their points up a little bit to compensate for some of these rules that we're introducing. So I don't think that a points change is really the answer or even likely for Vespid. Instead, we would want to see them just do more for that same number of points, therefore, affecting a different part of the point efficiency ratio. So we can make them do more, but what does more mean? More could mean more damage, or it could be more in a broader sense. So one option there is to make them do more damage, make them shoot more, increase the damage profile, something like that. But again, I don't think that necessarily provides the dynamic gameplay that we're looking for, and would have to be pretty heavy-handed to outweigh some of the benefits that you get from other units. So looking more in the direction of other things presents some interesting opportunities. And I've been thinking about Psychic Awakening a lot lately, thinking about how Tau could be affected by it, what their role in it would be, and also about the psychic phase in general. So if Psychic Awakening is bringing new units and new rules for all the armies, what if Tau don't get Psychers, which, again, I don't think is going to happen, but what if we get abilities that allow us to do things like Psychers can do, but just not in the Psychic phase or using, Psychers at all? But what if it's, special rules and technology that allow them to do things that would benefit them in a way that Psychers benefit other armies? And I think auxiliary troops like Vespid, like Kroot, and potentially new auxiliaries that haven't been manifested in the game yet, they could offer a really great opportunity for that. So maybe instead of fundamentally changing the way that a weapon fires, we just have it have some extra benefit to it. So for Vespid, I propose two things. I propose two different types of weapons that they can take. The first is the Neutron Blaster, and it's relatively similar to its current incarnation. In fact, the stat line is exactly the same. Strength 5, minus 2 AP, 1 damage. But instead of that being the end of the story, what if Neutron Blasters also made a unit -1 to hit? So we would, phrase that like, if a unit suffers 1 or more unsaved wounds from a Neutron Blaster, it is -1 to hit until the end of the next shooting phase. I think this works on multiple levels. One is it offers a benefit that other armies get through a variety of different psychic powers. It brings that option to us as Tau. The second is that it works with the fluff of Neutron Blasters. They're supposed to be shooting radiation, basically. So that radiation, is reasonable to assume is going to mess up all sorts of things with the target, one of which might be their vision, their accuracy, their ability to function normally. So having -1 to hit until the end of the next shooting phase, I think makes a lot of sense. It could also have the benefit, of course, of being -1 to hit in both shooting and melee, which if we phrased it as -1 to hit, it would, and that would make them more vulnerable to, maybe some punchy Vespid or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, so -1 to hit if you suffer an unsaved wound from the Neutron Blaster, I think would be a really good and fluffy benefit that wouldn't necessarily factor into points efficiency as we calculate now, but would justify their inclusion in the army just based on that effect. Another benefit of Psychers that other armies have access to are modifiers to leadership and to denying other psychic powers. So Tau can't deny the Witch, and I don't expect them to anytime soon, but what if we made it harder for enemy Psychers to actually succeed in their psychic tests? So what if we had a weapon that addressed both of those issues? So I'm going to call this the Neutron Breaker. Doesn't matter what the name is really. Whatever. So it'll be Assault 3 instead of Assault 2, so giving a little bit more volume of fire, but in exchange for that, it's going to be only Strength 4 instead of Strength 5. It will maintain the -2 AP, and then do 2 damage instead of 1. So we're looking at a little bit more punchy, but I think the benefit that it gets, in addition to that, is going to be -1 to leadership and -1 to psychic tests until the end of the next shooting phase. So this is a little bit more context specific, not necessarily as universally good as the other side effect with the Neutron Blaster, and so I think it's justified in having the weapon profile shifted in the way that I've done, but this is totally without testing or anything, so just spitballing here. So maybe it would be slightly different, but I think the core idea of having a weapon affect leadership and psychic tests would really fit again with the theme of radiation messing with bodily functions and offer something to Tau that they currently lack. There's no way to deny the Witch right now. If we had a weapon that messed with leadership and psychic abilities, that would at least give us some recourse. So I like that. I think it works out well in the fluff and would offer something really important to the Tau army. Finally, everybody knows that the Vespid model is horribly out of date and they need to produce a new one. So if they were to produce a new Vespid kit, I would expect it to be a multi-kit. So being able to produce multiple different units. So what would the counterpart to Stingwings be? Well, maybe a heavy version of Vespid. Maybe we call them like hackbacks or something. I don't know. But like a heavy version of Vespid. They would have, maybe +1 wound and then lose the deep strike ability. They wouldn't be able to do their special deployment. They would only be able to deploy as normal, but they would still maintain that high movement. In addition to this, they would have access to special weapons. Let's say a neutron rifle, and that neutron rifle maybe has Assault 4, Strength 4, -1 AP, 1 damage, but it has the side effect that if a unit suffers 1 or more unsaved wounds, that unit's movement is halved until the end of the next shooting phase. So again, a severe benefit to the Tau army that's currently lacking. Something that we don't have an ability to really slow down other units, especially because we don't have good assault screens that would otherwise tie something up. So having the ability to slow them down through a rule like this would be really advantageous. And I've kind of continued that stats progression that I set up with the Neutron Blaster, where we're at Strength 4, -1 AP, 1 damage, but it's Assault 4 this time instead of Assault 3 or Assault 2. So we're gradually shifting the volume of fire and varying the profile in a way that I think makes sense based on the benefit. So this would be something that would really be beneficial against blobs of infantry, but not really effective against other types of heavily armored units. So like vehicles or heavy infantry, things like that would not necessarily be affected by these, but it would still offer some recourse against those fast-moving units in a way that would really help the army. So those are just some general ideas. Again, in summary, I think all Vespid, both the normal Vespid and this heavy Vespid unit, should have either 2 points of cover or have a -1 to hit when they're in cover. Again, I think the -1 to hit is the stronger option. And then for Vespid Stingwings, we should give them the ability to affect leadership and psychic abilities, or to affect their ballistic skill. So I think either of those would be really good, and then this heavy version could mess with movement. All of these are things that are currently available in some way to psychic armies that we don't have access to, and it would simultaneously address that gap in the Tau army and also allow for Vespid to have a role. So those are some ideas. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you like these ideas? Do you have ideas of your own? If you do, I'd love to hear about it. So thanks for watching, and as always, happy wargaming. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I really mean it when I say this channel is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining our community over there as well. Special thanks to Shifty, Dallas Ellis, Jim Bob, Scott Heater, Nick Steele, Jared Egler, Tao Oswald, Jackson, Stephen Cohen, Eric Jackson, Zealous Brimstone, Evan Wells, and Chris Kessler.